If Groundhog Day could come to life out of the movie, it would be the daily grind in the NBA bubble, one day after another being the same. Same people around, same sights, and the same sounds. I give the players a lot of credit for not going crazy, although early on in the bubble, some players tried to leave for some wings at the strip club. We're looking at you, Lemon Pepper Lou. But in the bubble, you're not there to find existential meaning. You're there to play basketball. Your goal is to get to the playoffs and win, all during a global pandemic, while playing games with no fans. We all will never forget the gut-wrenching feeling we all got on the night of March 11, 2020, when Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID-19. At that moment, before anyone knew what happened, the NBA season was suspended until further notice. We all thought we would never see the end of the NBA season play out. It was added depression on the current situation. Now, 7 months later, the 2020 NBA playoffs just ended, where we saw LeBron James's Los Angeles Lakers defeat the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals, in the first ever finals without fans and in a bubble. It goes without saying, however, that this season has been a bit different. But different isn't always bad, as long as everything continues on as planned, right? Everybody had an opinion. Some people said that playing in the bubble is no different than playing a pickup basketball game. Some said the games shouldn't count. Some even said, with no fans out there, that it took away from pressure elements of playing on the road in a loud and hostile environment. But no matter what anyone thought, I am just thankful that we got the season underway and got to watch it unfold. Now, the 2020 NBA playoffs had nightly historic performances from the game's top players in the world, but with so many to choose from, which one tops them all? Despite the criticisms, and as strange as it was having the postseason play out in the Disney bubble, the basketball itself was as good as it's ever been. You just knew that there was going to be one historic performance after another every night. From Luka Doncic's highly anticipated playoff debut to LeBron James's title-clinching triple-double, every night left us with our jaws to the ground. But which performances were the best? That's the question we're going to answer today. But before we jump in, please remember that if you've enjoyed the video thus far and want to hear more about the best individual performances of the 2020 NBA playoffs, then please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons and make sure to tell your friends and family about the journey we are about to embark on. Now let's dive in a bit deeper. The first game on this list is Kawhi Leonard's Game 6 versus the Dallas Mavericks in the first round. Kawhi silently dropped 33 points on 14 for 23 from the field, 1 for 4 from three-point land, and 4 for 4 at the free throw line, with 14 rebounds, 7 assists, and 5 steals to add to his efficient shooting. I have to admit, the Luka Doncic-led Dallas Mavericks made things interesting and were a very tough opponent for the Clippers in their first-round series, but the fun guy Kawhi Leonard had the last laugh. Kawhi sent the Mavericks home from the bubble with an all-around performance, and that's exactly what the Clippers expected when they signed the California native last year for games and moments like this. It was the 5th straight game that Leonard scored 30 points, the longest such streak of his postseason career. With an incredibly stout performance, Kawhi ended up averaging 32.8 points, 10.2 rebounds, 5.2 assists, and 2.3 steals per game against the Mavericks in the first round, while shooting 53.8% from the field. It was a dominant series from the two-time Finals MVP and champion. The next performance worth noting is Kyle Lowry's Game 6 versus the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference semifinals. The Philly native dropped 33 points on 12 for 20 from the field, 6 for 10 from three-point land, and 3 for 4 from the line, in addition to having 8 rebounds and 6 assists. In what was arguably the best game of the playoffs, Lowry's Starr shined the brightest. Facing the possibility of being eliminated, Lowry did everything that was needed to catapult the Toronto Raptors to a double overtime victory in Game 6 of their second-round series with the Celtics. The Raptors got major minutes and a scoring infusion off the bench from Norman Powell in the overtime periods to come up with a win, but Lowry provided the knockout haymaker with a tough fadeaway over Kemba Walker in the closing seconds of the second overtime. It was the kind of game that made you question why you ever slept on Lowry and realized that last year's championship wasn't all about Kawhi, but the entire Raptors squad. It was just a vintage performance from the 6-time All-Star to force a Game 7. Moving along, we come to the Joker. Nikola Yokitch's Game 7 versus the Los Angeles Clippers in the Western Conference semifinals broke the back of the Clippers on and off the court. The Joker finished with 16 points on 5 for 13 from the field, 6 for 6 from the line, in addition to a whopping 22 rebounds and 13 assists. These are unreal numbers for a big in the NBA. Funny thing is, the Joker was so dominant during the playoffs that this wasn't even Yokitch's most productive game of the playoffs, but it was easily his most notable for us. It was a Game 7 versus a Clippers squad that was predicted to win the championship by many. And what did Joker do? He dominated with a 16-point, 22-rebound, 13-assist triple-double. Though he only shot 5 for 13 from the field, he had complete control over the game and outplayed both Clipper stars Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. But at this point, Paul George is an afterthought. Now, impressively enough, this was the second time in Yokitch's career that he's recorded a triple-double in Game 7. The first he did this against was the San Antonio Spurs in the first round of last postseason. Yokitch's 2 Game 7 triple-doubles are the most in NBA history, and this is a friendly reminder that Yokitch is only 25 years old. Additionally, if we needed another reason to jaw-drop at Yokitch's performances, his 2 greats in Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan as the only players since the NBA-ABA merger to record a 20-rebound triple-double in the playoffs. And as we all know, and I rooted for, the Joker's triple-double, combined with Jamal Murray's 40 points, elevated the Nuggets to defeat the Clippers and complete their second 3-1 comeback of the playoffs and advance to the conference finals for the first time since 2009. Moving from a Joker to a King, next is LeBron James's Game 6 versus the Miami Heat in the finals. The King casually put up 28 points, 13 for 20 from the field, 1 of 5 from three-point land, and 1 of 4 from the line. He also poured in 14 rebounds and 10 assists to complete his triple-double. No matter how old the man is, his game doesn't age. Or if it does, it ages like a fine wine. Following an unreal clash with Jimmy Butler in Game 5 of the finals, Butler came back down to earth. However, King James did not. James followed up his 40-point, 13-rebound double-double in Game 5 with a 28-point, 14-rebound, 10-assist triple-double in Game 6, doing so on an effectual 13 for 20 shooting from the field while committing only 1 turnover. LeBron set the tone in what turned out to be a dominant win for the Lakers, leading them to their 17th title in franchise history and earning him his 4th championship, as well as his 4th Finals MVP award. This was actually the 3rd time the King had a career triple-double in a finals clinching win, breaking a tie with Magic Johnson for the most all-time. So it was very fitting he did it as a Laker. It was also the King's 11th career triple-double in the finals, extending his lead over Johnson for the most ever. All hail King James. Even though LeBron won, the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler should not be overshadowed. Jimmy Butler's Game 5 versus the Los Angeles Lakers in the finals was just as epic. Jimmy dropped 35 points, on 11 for 19 from the field, 1 for 3 from three-point land, and an efficient 12 for 12 from the line. Oh, and Jimmy also added a cool 12 rebounds and 11 assists to complete the triple-double. Jimmy's buckets was just flat-out dominant in Miami's second and final win against Los Angeles in the finals. Jimmy proved to the world that he has a heart of a champion, and that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the problem in Minnesota and Philadelphia. But in the process, Butler became only the second player in NBA history to record multiple 30-point triple-doubles in a single NBA Finals. And the only other person to do that is LeBron. Butler never backed down and was a dog on the court. He went toe-to-toe with James, who exploded for 40 points, 13 rebounds, and 7 assists, culminating in an unforgettable game in the final minutes. The Heat outscored the Lakers 15-9 in the clutch in Game 5, and Jimmy Buckets was responsible for 11 of those points, outscoring the Lakers as a team all by himself. Since we still have LeBron fresh on the brain, let's talk about another LeBron James performance. Game 5 versus the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. The Kings scored 38 points, on 15 for 25 from the field, 1 for 4 from beyond the arc, and 7 for 8 from the line. Oh, and he also threw in a cool 16 boards and 10 assists. LeBron haters are always filled with venom, but it's hard to deny that LeBron knows how to close a team out. James took over in the fourth quarter with 16 points. He had a stretch where he scored 9 straight points for the Lakers, which, surprisingly, were all coming on jump shots. It's hard to deny that when the heat is on and you need leadership, the King can step up. Moving along, one of my favorite players, Donovan Mitchell, had himself some nice bubble and playoff games this year. In Game 4 versus the Denver Nuggets, in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs, playoffs, he shined very bright. Spider-Man stunned with 51 points, on 15 for 27 from the field, 4 for 7 from three-point land, and 17 for 18 from the line, with a nice addition of 8 assists and 4 rebounds. Mitchell scored 50 points not once, but twice in Utah's first-round series with Denver, the second of which gave the Jazz a 3-1 series lead. With Mitchell scoring 51 points and Jamal Murray scoring 50, they became the first ever opposing players to score at least 50 points in the same game in the playoffs. But in Game 4, Mitchell took over when it mattered most, scoring 18 of his 51 points in the fourth quarter. Mitchell's other 50-point game against the Nuggets in the first round came in Game 1. Unfortunately for Mitchell, it came in a losing effort. You can't talk about 2020 playoff performances and not talk about Jamal Murray. If the world didn't know him before, well, they know him now. Maul's Game 6 versus the Utah Jazz in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs was one of those to remember. Murray casually put up 50 points, on 17 of 24 from the field, 9 for 12 from three-point land, and 7 for 9 from the line, along with 6 assists and 5 boards. Murray had a number of incredible games in the playoffs, but this one stands out the most. With the Nuggets one loss away from elimination, Murray responded by scoring 42 points in Game 5 to keep their season alive, followed by 50 points in Game 6 to force a Game 7. Murray accomplished this with impeccable efficiency in shooting 17 for 24 from the field, making him only the second player ever to score 50 points on at least 70% shooting from the field in a playoff game. Murray also joined Wilt Chamberlain and Sleepy Floyd as the only players in NBA history to score 50 points in an elimination game, and became the fourth player in NBA history to have 2 50-point games in the same series, the others being Donovan Mitchell, Allen Iverson, and Michael Jordan. The Nuggets would go on to win Game 7 to complete their first of 2 3-1 comebacks. Next is the young man. Luka Doncic's Game 4 versus the Los Angeles Clippers in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs was a memorable one. It was also the first time we saw cracks in the Clippers. Luka proudly poured in 43 points, on 18 of 31 from the field, 4 of 10 from beyond the arc, and 3 of 5 from the line. The young man added in 17 rebounds and 13 assists as well. This was just another example of another memorable triple-double. Only 2 other players in NBA history have ever posted a 40-point, 15-rebound, 10-assist game in the playoffs. Those players? Charles Barkley and Oscar Robertson, both Hall of Famers. That's some pretty good company for the young fella. Doncic capped off his 40-15-10 triple-double with a step-back three-pointer over Reggie Jackson to win the game in overtime, completing a 21-point comeback and making him the youngest player ever, 21 years and 177 days, to hit a playoff buzzer beater. Doncic's triple-double was made all the more impressive by him suffering an ankle injury the game before and the Mavericks being without Kristaps Porzingis, the team's second leading scorer during the regular season. In coming years, the NBA will have problems with the Mavs, and it all starts and ends with Luka. And to cap the most amazing performances off of the 2020 NBA playoffs, we have to revisit the Jimmy Buckets well again. This was a game for the ages. Jimmy Butler's Game 3 versus the Los Angeles Lakers in the finals, where he scored 40 points, on 14 for 20 shooting and 12 for 14 from the line, while dropping 13 assists and grabbing 10 boards. This is an example of a historic triple-double on the biggest stage that is the finals. While putting the team on his back and dropping 40 points, dishing out 13 assists and grabbing 10 rebounds, Jimmy Buckets became only the third player in NBA history to record a 40-point triple-double in the finals, joining LeBron and Jerry West. Butler also made history by becoming the first player ever to outscore, out-rebound, and out-assist James in a finals game, his teammates included. Honestly, that is so significant that it should not be understated. That's quite the achievement, considering James has played 55 finals games in his career. But Butler's performances was much needed, as both Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo missed a game with injuries. It prevented the Heat from falling into a 3-0 hole that would have put them on the verge of being swept. The NBA playoffs have been historic for many reasons, but all of these amazing performances by the best in the world was just the icing on the cake. Let us know your favorite 2020 NBA playoff performances below.